mature yet.
Wait, but who's your son judging harshly?
Both of them were on different things. And I would go back to, we were talking about Judaism, we were talking about traditions, we were talking about the Bible, we were talking about what you do when you're 20. That's what I'm saying. But it was just so interesting because, you know, they want something, and then they talk about things, and everyone's back to saying how unfairly things have been treated, and I wanted to say to them, look, I'm 40 years down the road here, you know, but it will look different to you, please. But I also didn't have mass media and social media and news, and I was judgmental all by myself. Right? It just seemed like that's our nature. I was surprised, yes, but I was surprised to see how far, and it was different conversations with both of my boys at different times privately, but they both had very few feelings, very few. And
Interesting.
You know, at least you're having these conversations with the kids, because I think we made a mistake of saying Israel was so perfect, Israel was so wonderful in our conversation with kids for so long, that they didn't look at Israel. So many of them feel disconnected from Israel. You know, that it's a country,
Yeah.
a country.
It is part of, and don't forget, Marcia, you've done a good job making sure your kids feel accepted and loved. I am. So folks, we're going to start reading now. And so no, it's okay. So we what we left off with again was that Jehoshaphat became king. Now we're going to go back to the north. And that's where we left off. So I'm going to turn it over to Rosemary, who's going to take us to the northern kingdom. So this is the descendants of Jeroboam. We read that one of his sons, who was sounded like a nice guy, died. And that really scared Jeroboam, because the prophet who had come out to tell him that his son was going to die, he was scared by it. And of course, he did die, his son, Ahiah, and then Nadav becomes king instead. And as you can see, he did not reign for a very long time. So Rosemary, take it away.
Nadab, son of Jeroboam, had become king over Israel in the 2nd year of King Asa of Judah, and he reigned over Israel for 2 years. He did what was displeasing to the Lord. He continued in the ways of his father, in the sins which he caused Israel to commit.
Yeah, and we know that Aaron has a son named Nadav, right? Nadav and Avihu, the two sons that offer up strange fire and get burned up. In Leviticus chapter 10, we read about these guys that got burned up on the dedication day of the tabernacle, the Mishkan. So Nadav, is it a coincidence? Yeah, I mean, we don't think the name, Aaron had a son named Nadav and Avihu. Not a good name in the Bible, track record. And there weren't a lot of Nadavs until recently. But now Nadav has come back as a Hebrew name in Israel. And you see people with Nadav. You don't see too many Yehoshaphat's. You do see some Asas now. You do see some of these names that have popped back up. But yeah, there's not really much we can learn about this guy. He only reigns for 2 years. And it says he did what was bad, right? He continued to do what was displeasing. Now, who's writing this? Again, the people of the south are writing this. The priests of Jerusalem are writing this. People who are surrounded, they're in King Asa's circle, or they're in King Josiah's circle. They're priests. They're people who don't want Jeroboam, the statues, the altars that he built, the shrines that he built in the north. They don't want them using them. Well, it seems like, again, King Nadav is continuing that, because he did what was displeasing to the Lord, right? He did what his father did. The sins which Israel committed were continuing to worship these golden statues. So he dies. He dies after 2 years, which seems to verify that he was doing bad stuff. Well, his father was king for a long time, and he was the one who instituted it. You saw he was king for 20-something years. It's pretty good. but he lives for 2. Now there's a change in dynasty. Let's read what happens.
Then Baasha, son of Ahiah of the house of Issachar, conspired against him, and Baasha struck him down at Gibbethon of the Philistines, while Nadab and all Israel were laying siege to Gibbethon. Baasha killed him in the 3rd year of King Asa of Judah and became king in his stead.
Yeah, so he didn't die of natural causes. King Nadab got killed after 2 years. Now, you could say God wanted him to die because he did bad things. Or you could say that this guy, Baasha, who's from a different tribe, he's from the tribe of Issachar. He didn't like him and he killed him. That's the end of Jeroboam's family reign. Jeroboam's family does not reign for a long time. Exactly what the prophet had come and said.
12 tribes, where does Issachar?
Issachar is one of those 10 northern tribes, right? They're not Judah, they're not Shimon, they're in the south. Benjamin was kind of also in the southern sphere. The Levites were also all over. So really, you really only have 9 tribes in the north. You really only have 9, maybe 8. And one of them, the Levites are everywhere. So you only really have, you can say 8 tribes that get fully, disappeared, if you will. Because, so we call them the 10 lost tribes, but there's really not 10 lost tribes because Shimon got totally absorbed. Levites are not ever gone. They're still Levites today, right? Levim, right? Benjamin doesn't disappear. Why do I say that? Because, well, the Torah says that they're still in the south. They're still, Jerusalem is in the tribe of Benjamin. It's located in the tribe of Benjamin. So all those people were all right. No, not all of Benjamin. Part of Benjamin would have been exiled. But we know that Benjaminites existed as a people during the Babylonian destruction because Esther and her family, Mordecai, are Benjaminites. And they're said they were the tribe of Benjamin. So that means that by 300, 400 BCE, during the time of the kings of Persia, people are still of the tribe of Benjamin. So we know that they're not totally gone. So the lost tribes are never really, like, some of them are lost. Issachar, we never hear from someone from the tribe of Issachar by the time after the Babylonian destruction. We don't hear anybody says, I'm from the tribe of Issachar. We don't hear that.
So today, how do you try yourself? If you have, 85% from the diaspora.
You're Judah. You're from the tribe of Judah.
And how do we know this?
Because the Torah tells us that and the genetics tell us that. The only difference is if you're a Kohen, if you're a Levite or a Kohen.
How do you know this?
You do your DNA test. And it says if you have this, this Kohanic gene, but anybody can have a Kohen gene. You don't have to be a Kohen to have a Kohen gene. One of your ancestors was a Kohen, it would show up. You haven't really definitively proved who's a Levite. They've proven who's a Kohen, but they haven't really proved a Levite gene. And that's all they can say is that they have a haplotype that's a Kohanic marker, but they have those. So, and we actually look at those markers to decide whether a community is Jewish at all. So if a community comes forward and says, hey, we think we're Jewish, they'll look for that marker. And if they see it, they go, well, maybe. But if they don't see the marker, they go, it really can't be Jewish.
So the diaspora is not.
By the way, that Kohanic marker is legit.
But it's separate from the diaspora.
Every Jewish community that has that gene in it. So if you go into your Romaniot ancestry, they have it. Every Jewish community has that Kohanic gene. If it doesn't have the gene, then it probably isn't. The issue is there's communities that have Kohanic genes that have no recognition that they're Jewish.
Why is that? I don't understand that.
Because we identified a gene, we identified a haplotype, we found a marker. So there's a marker that we have traced back to Israel 3,000 years ago. And we found this marker, and every Jewish community has this marker. There are people within the community that have this marker. So the Ethiopian Jews, for example, don't have that marker. So that's one of the reasons why they're not proven to be Jewish. But it doesn't matter. With the courts of Israel have deemed them Jewish. The Lemba of South Africa, on the other hand, who claim Jewish ancestry, do have that Kohanic gene. And we haven't said they're all Jewish. We actually, they're not even asking necessarily to all be Jewish, but the Lemba have that marker, which means that somehow there were Jews that we don't know for how they did it, but they went down even further than Ethiopia because the Lemba live in Zimbabwe and South Africa. What? Yes. Yes. So if people have their DNA test and it turns out they have that haplotype, then they have probably a Jewish ancestor. If you don't have that haplotype, it doesn't mean you're not Jewish. There's other haplotypes that they have for Jews. It just so happens, yes, we've talked about this. We can trace 70% of the Ashkenazi community to 4 women that lived 1,000 years ago. 4 women. That's a genetic bottleneck like you wouldn't believe. Yeah, 4 women. Well, we're all related within closer than that. We're all related according to one geneticist I talked to. We're all related within 7 generations. The Jewish community is all related within 7 generations, every one of us, which is much closer than if we're Ashkenazi. What? Yeah, I don't know if you consider 7 generations necessarily close, but we are. So if you go back, that he says it's just been proven by the DNA test that they do. So again, they can't say what tribe you're from other than this Kohanic gene, but even that's not a full tribe, right? The Kohanim were only part of the Levites. But the fact that they actually found it is amazing. The fact that the text actually was verified by the DNA is what was so shocking, because the people who studied it in Israel, the scientists who studied it, were not expecting to find it. They were actually kind of hoping to find that this was not true. And when they found it, they were blown away that it turned out that there actually was a marker. And now it's been accepted. I mean, it's one of the most accepted studies of genetics is this thing. And again, the rabbinic courts in Israel have not, if you came and you had a history that you were Jewish, you've always been Jewish, whatever, if they did a DNA test and it turned out you weren't, they will not disqualify you in Israel for being Jewish based on DNA. They do not accept DNA as a means of proving someone's Jewish heritage. They haven't yet, and I don't know that they will. I don't know. I don't know that they will because to some extent, if you open that up, there's a side to that essentially, if you're going to say that we're going to allow science to determine who's a Jew, then you could have people be determined who are Jewish who you don't want to be Jewish. I will only tell you that the Kohanic marker comes up very high amongst the Palestinian population, higher than it does in some Jewish communities, established Jewish communities.
Also, wouldn't account for.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't account for conversions, and the Jewish and so the Jewish courts would always say, "Hey, look, we don't know if this person was mixed up," and that's been the case for a long time. Again, the Talmud literally says we don't know what tribe is which. So by the time of the Talmud, the rabbi said, "We can, if you tell me you're from the tribe of Issachar, I say, okay, great, but there's no proof." They said, "We do not know." The rabbi said, "We do not know who is who. We don't know who's an Ammonite. We don't know who's a Jew. We don't know who's a Issachar." So they basically said, "We don't know." So again, so Baasha is from the tribe of Issachar. He kills. We already read about Baasha because we read about him during King Asa's time. They were rivals. They fought against each other. They actually fought against each other. They actually had armies that fought against each other. Well, this guy Baasha is by himself gets power by killing this other guy. So, you know, he was a military man to some extent because he fights with King Asa of Judah. He uses military power to strike down Nadav. And according to this, he struck him down, he killed him while the kingdom of Israel was engaged in a war with the Philistines. So the Philistines were fighting against the Philistines and the Israelites We don't know what Judah's doing at this time. Judah doesn't seem to be involved in this fight, but it shows that Israel and the Philistines are still fighting with each other over some parts of the country. And Baasha kills him while they were in that, while they're fighting together, assumedly Baasha kills him. So he's a general for him. He's a captain. He kills him, kills his king. This is pretty bad behavior. What? Well, no, I mean, the Philistines were on the coast, but they obviously extended all the way into Israel. Now, they would also have been a problem for the kingdom of Judah too, the Philistines. So either the Philistines had pacts with the kings of Judah at this time, they had an agreement, or they were fighting with them too. But we do know, and we saw it already, we saw what happens when one of the kings of Judah, we read about it, makes an ally with Aram, so that we just read about it last week. King Baasha, has to fight the Arameans, and that's how King Asa gets him Baasha off his back. So we know that they used, not only they fought against each other, but they used their surrounding enemies against each other too. This is really bad stuff. I mean, this is the worst kind of behavior you could expect to fight against each other and to use enemies to fight against each other too. It's pretty bad. So here's what King Baasha does.
As soon as he became king, he struck down all the house of Jeroboam. He did not spare a single soul belonging to Jeroboam until he destroyed it, in accordance with the word that the Lord had spoken through his servant Ahiah the Shilonite, because of the sins which Jeroboam committed and which he caused Israel to commit, thereby vexing the Lord, the God of Israel.
It's pretty sad. It's pretty bad. This is pretty much as bad as you can get. So Baasha kills all of Jeroboam's family. Any of the cousins, any of the other people around, which is what Ahiah had said a few years before. So, it only took 25 years for this prophecy to be fulfilled. It was not a good end to King Jeroboam and his family. Yes. And so King Baasha takes care of business, because that's what kings did. They made sure that there were no rivals. He didn't want some legitimate heir to Jeroboam's throne come and fight him. So yeah, the people of Judah say, well, that's what God told you is going to happen. But we could also say that's what politics tells us is going to happen. That's what good business strategy, if you're a king, is. If you're a king that has led a coup, you kill everybody of the family. And this is the way things were done. It's very sad. It's very sad to see it, but yes, it is what people did. And it's what they did, that's what they did when a new sultan came to power in in the Ottoman dynasty. The guy would come to power and he'd kill all his brothers. You knew that once your brother became sultan, you were dead. That's a pretty tough thing to think about. It was just, that was the normal situation. It's like documented. It's not, I'm not saying it happened once. This is what would happen. And that's why these people, these sultans would have, in some cases, 50 or 60 sons. They had harems, right? And so they had lots of kids. And if you were that kid, that lucky kid got to be sultan, all your brothers, their lives weren't worth a whole lot. So, look, they'd have a good time for the first 15, 20, 30 years of their lives. But as soon as their brothers were in office, they were dead. So they enjoyed the harem. They enjoyed the life of being a prince, but it was a short-lived career. You were like a rock star. You died young. Leave a pretty corpse. It was not a good life to be part of a dynasty like this. Even if you didn't want to be king, your brother couldn't risk you being there and having someone use you and say, oh, well, I know you don't want to be king, but my vizier over here, can get a better, he can do better under you than me. I have no choice. I got to kill you. It's crazy, but this is what happened. It's not good. So yes, the people of Judah read it as punishment for bad behavior, whereas we would say, yeah, that's politics. So what does it say here?
The other events of Nadab's reign and all his actions are recorded in the annals of the kings of Israel. There was war between Asa and King Baasha of Israel all their days.
We already read that. Read that last week from the standpoint of King Asa. Now that we're reading about King Baasha, we read the same thing, which is they fought all the time. They were fighting. And you can imagine what those wars were like. Those wars were civil wars where Israelites were killing other Israelites, where people who were descendants of Moses and Aaron and Joshua and Samson and all those people that we've been reading about for the last 200 years were killing each other. That's what we just read. I mean, we don't have any details of it, really. We read a little bit about how King Asa steals all the fortifications that Baasha had brought down, and he stole it. That was like a little tiny tidbit that we read about, that he ended up, while King Baasha was fighting against the Arameans, that he went up there, took all the stuff, and then used it to fortify his own places. That's all we read about. The Bible basically just said, hey, if you want to read more about it, go read the other book, which we don't have. So we don't have that book. So the sad thing is we don't know. We do get some other information in the book of Chronicles. So there is other information in the Bible, but not a lot. We don't get the full battle details. We don't get
Remind me, what was the name of the other book?
Chronicles. But this book is called,
No, the book that we don't have.
this book is called The Annals of the Kings of Israel.
Israel, I got it.
And then we also have a book called Sefer Divrei Hayamim L'Malchei Israel. And then we also have a Sefer Divrei Hayamim L'Malchei Yehudah from the tribe of Judah. So we have two books. Now, we actually call the book of Chronicles Divrei Hayamim. Divrei Hayamim literally means, so Sefer means book, right? And Divrei Hayamim means the book of days. That's what it means, the book of days, which we translate in English or Greek to Chronicles. So the book of Chronicles is called Divrei Hayamim. So the people who named the book said, that's the book. It's not the book. The book we don't have. They wanted that to be the book. It's not the book. It was a book that was very similar, which also had other information about this time, but it wasn't the book. This book had stuff that was not, we don't have it. Yeah, Alexandria, where they burned in Israel, where they burned by King Nebuchadnezzar. I mean, these are books we don't have. We'd love to have them, but we don't have them, which means that the book we do have here and the book we have in the book of Chronicles were edited versions of histories, which means what we have is not, this right here is not a history. I always caution people about that. The two most important pieces I want to make today to make clear for people as we read these books and why we read these books. The first is, as I said already, that we can behave just as badly as anybody else. If you read this and you're not appalled by the behavior, then there's something wrong with you. I don't know how people read this. And again, the rabbis knew that this was bad behavior. I want to make it clear. They didn't excuse this. They didn't say this is good behavior. This is bad. They don't like this. And this is, by the way, one of the reasons why the rabbis never were encouraging Jews to be kings, because they knew that this was possible. They knew that they saw the Maccabees, the last Jewish kings we had, were behaving just as badly as this. King Herod, who's arguably part Jewish, is horrible, a horrible individual. So they're not chomping on the bit to have Jewish kings, which is tough because the Messiah is a king. The Messiah isn't just like a guy who's friendly, who comes and brings peace to everybody. He's a Jewish king. So how do you wrap your head around a Jewish king who's not going to be like this? Well, by the way, one of the ways is to have a guy like Jesus, who has no pretense of being like this. So this is probably one of the reasons why early Christians who were Jewish or who cared about Judaism weren't trying to make Jesus into a king necessarily like that. Now, there's another possibility. There were people who wanted Jesus to be a king just like this, and either he didn't want to be or he couldn't be. All I can tell you is these are all possibilities that are important. But the other thing I want you to think about, again, from the Jewish context right here, is that what we're reading is not a history. This is not history. Nobody kept this for historical purposes. They kept it for other purposes. They kept it so that people can say right here, the sins that Jeroboam committed. Because if you write a history, you don't talk in those terms. These are religious terms. This is a religious book. These are people who are looking at prophets. They're looking at sins. They're looking at what people are doing wrong. And the problem is that we don't have any other history but this. We don't know this history except for here, but it was not kept as a history book. So it's just, again, it's like if you're trying to read a book of poetry to understand, I don't know, you read Wordsworth, or you read, I don't know, use an American poet. You read Walt Whitman. I want to read Walt Whitman because I want to understand what life was like in the 19th century America. You're going to get a few things in there, but you're not going to learn history from it. You'll catch some stuff, but it's not meant to teach history. And that's the problem. This wasn't meant to teach history, but this is all the history we have. So that's the thing that I want to make really clear to people. I know that people read this and they look at the historical value of this, but it was not written for that purpose. The people who wrote this had every intention that if you wanted to read history, go look somewhere else. And they just told you that. If you want to know about it, read the other books. So I love history. This isn't history, but it's all we have. Those are the points. This isn't history, that's all we have. All right. So here's what we're going to read about the last word on, well, it's actually not the last word, but let's read the end of the chapter.
In the 3rd year of King Asa of Judah, Baasha, son of Ahiah, became king in Tirzah over all Israel for 24 years. He did what was displeasing to the Lord. He followed the ways of Jeroboam and the sins which he caused Israel to commit.
Yeah, so the last word again is a religious word on him, which is he was bad. And he also, as we can see, he moved the capital to Tirzah, to a different place, right? He's living in Tirzah. Now, just to, again, just pop this up real quick for everybody to see one more time. Well, I'll do it in a sec, but wait a second. Here is a second. This is where we are right now. So King Baasha is right here, and you can see we're right about here now. So when you see when Baasha dies, which we date about 950, so about 50 years after Solomon dies. So it's still within, like, there are people who would have known King Baasha and Solomon. I mean, they would have been maybe 15, 20 years old when Solomon died, and they overlap. But there are people that know these people. I mean, there's people who would have known King Solomon and these people. They wouldn't have known King David, but they would have known King Solomon. So King Baasha is a person, he's in people's lives for a long time. Now he's in the north, he's in their lives for a while. But even if you're in the south, even if you're in the tribe of Judah, this guy's fighting against you, and he's in power for 24 years. So he's making your life uncomfortable. King Baasha is having an effect on them. Now, what happens when Baasha dies is this. This is an indication that we have a period of real instability. 2 years, 7 days, 4 years, 8 years. So between that's 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, which comes out to 14 years. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 kings. That's not very good. We're going to read about them right now. Okay. So this is who we're reading about. I'd much rather read about the bottles of wine, but we're going to read it. We're going to read instead. We're going to read instead about why this happened in Israel, why this happened for those kings. So here's what happens.
The word of the Lord came to Jehu, son of Hanani, against Baasha. Because I lifted you up from the dust and made you a ruler over my people Israel, but you followed the way of Jeroboam and caused my people Israel to sin, vexing me with their sins. I am going to sweep away Baasha and his house. I will make your house like the house of Jeroboam, son of Nebat.
So there's a prophet named Yehu who comes to Baasha and basically says, prophesies against Baasha and tell him that we're going to take away his kingdom. And that's the end of your dynasty. Now, the reason that this is here is because, as you already I showed you, this is what happens. It wouldn't have been here if it didn't happen. But again, why is it happening? Because you continue to do what Jeroboam did. You're keeping the people of Israel worshiping in the north. Look, what are these people going to say? The people of the south essentially have to say there's a reason why these people are doing bad, why they have these coups. Because on one hand, they know Rehoboam was a bad king. The people of the south know that Rehoboam was a bad king, that he treated the people poorly. He could have been a better king. He could have kept the dynasty. He could have kept the kingdom unified. He could have done a better job, but he didn't. And he drove Jeroboam away. And we read about it. There was even a prophet, right, who told Jeroboam, you're going to be king. But they didn't want, the people of the south have one thing really important to them. They don't want people to stop worshiping in Jerusalem. So this is their problem. So again, Yehu comes to him and says, you're making everybody continue to do the bad thing. They're worshiping God wrong. And I'm going to sweep this dynasty away too. And here's the prophecy continues, another paragraph.
Anyone belonging to Baasha who dies in the town shall be devoured by dogs, and anyone belonging to him who dies in the open country shall be devoured by the birds of the sky. The other events of Baasha's reign and his actions and his exploits are recorded in the annals of the kings of Israel.
So that's the same line, right? But what else happened to him? What else happened to him? The text is virtually silent because here's what it says.
Baasha slept with his fathers and was buried in Tirzah. His son Elah succeeded him as king.
So he died. His son Elah takes over. We've already been told it ain't going to last long, right? It's actually not over yet. Let's read it.
But the word of the Lord had come through the prophet Yehu, son of Hanani, against Baasha and against his house, that it would fare like the house of Jeroboam, which he himself had struck down, because of all the evil he did, which was displeasing to the Lord, vexing him with his deeds.
Yeah, which is pretty much a repetition of what we already read, which is that this guy, did what was bad, and so he's going to this is going to come to an end. But it did not come to an end during Baasha's lifetime. It didn't happen during Baasha's lifetime. Here's what it says.
In the 26th year of King Asa of Judah, Elah, son of Baasha, became king over Israel at Tirzah for 2 years. His officer Zimri, commander of half the chariotry, committed treason against him while he was at Tirzah, drinking himself drunk in the house of Arza, who was in charge of the palace at Tirzah. Zimri entered, struck him down, and killed him. He succeeded him as king in the 27th year of King Asa of Judah.
So he was having a party with his soldiers. And one of his officers, Zimri, came in and killed him. So Elah was Baasha's son. He reigned, as you saw, 2 years. All of this happens towards the end of King Asa's reign. That's why, again, I keep going back and forth to this so you can see when it happened, right? So it happens during the time of Asa's last days. So here's Asa. And around that time, it's actually not even his last days. He still has some time. But all of this happens during King Asa's time. So technically, while Asa was alive, you have one coup where Baasha kills Nadav. And then you have another coup where Zimri kills Baasha's son Ella. So this dynasty of Baasha's dynasty only lasts 2 years after he dies, when his son Ella is killed by Zimri. So there you can see. I know it's confusing, but this guy rules for 2 years and is killed. And this guy rules for 2 years and he gets killed. So both of them inherit. Nadav inherited from Jeroboam, Ella inherited from Baasha, and they both die. So these are not dynasties. I mean, these literally are a son takes over and within a couple years is dead. Which, by the way, shows you that the stability that happened over here in the house of Judah overall was pretty good. Now, obviously, this is not good. We'll get to that. We're going to get to that. But you can see that for about, this whole time, with the exception of Abiyah, who died, we have this little problem here. But overall, these guys are kings for a pretty long time. Nobody's killing them. Nobody's killing them.
Because they were popular, or because it was not?
Well, I would say part of it was that there was a infrastructure, a power center there where things function smoothly. And people are like, we want it to, we don't want it to happen. When this happens right here, this happens internally. No, look, no, Marcia, when you see this happen, it's very easily for the people to say, oh, it's because these guys are bad people. Because if you don't have that, but look, there's something happens. Look, you can't deny this. This dude is king for 20 years. This dude's king for 20 years. Jeroboam and Baasha, 20 years. King Ahab, 20 years. King Yehu, 28 years. King Joash, 16 years. Jeroboam II, 41 years. It's possible to do it in the north. It's possible that those northern kings could be powerful. The problem is you don't have dynastic succession. So nobody's invested in the system staying the way it is. If people like the system, then they keep it going. If they don't like the system, that's my argument, is like, when you look at this, you can have power in the north and you can be an effective leader, obviously, in the north. But the system, the structure is much better here, because the structure, the interests of the political bodies to keep things stable is here. So you have to almost have the willingness of the population, the willingness of I want to make a point. This stuff here in the north, these are generals killing their leaders, right? These aren't popular revolts where people are storming the castle and killing the king. They're coups. These are people that are assassinating the person that's standing next to them, going, I'm going to kill this person. So this is not popular revolts. This isn't the French Revolution. This stuff here is an indication that the infrastructure, the power structure, is such that people wanted to continue the way it's going. I don't know that this guy was a good king. I don't know that this guy was a good king. Actually, the Bible will oftentimes say that these people were not good kings, but they last a really long time, which is problematic, because when the people who wrote this, who were in the South, say these guys were all bad, that's why they died. Well, that's not exactly true, because that guy was bad and he ruled for 24 years. That guy's bad. Ahab is really bad. He rules for 22 years. These guys could also be bad, and then they last for a really long time. So it's easy for them to say it. The reality is it's just not true. The reality is there's a power structure that keeps these people in power because they like it. They don't want chaos. If we don't want chaos, we make sure that there is a clear transfer in power and we keep the system going. It's an interesting cautionary tale for us in this country, in America, because when you have people who are making people uncomfortable and creating situations where no one can watch, everyone has to be uncomfortable, and everyone's watching their back all the time. And this does happen, by the way. Those transitions of power, they happen in Syria. That's how President Assad in Syria came to power. They had a couple of years where they just killed whoever was the general. They deposed him and killed him, and then there was another general. So that happened. I mean, it happens in countries today. I mean,
Russia in 1919.
well, it happened in Russia more recently than that, but we don't really know exactly what happened.
Right.
Because we had a guy named Yuri Andropov who was premier for about 30 days. There was a pope that was in power for about a month too. When people see that kind of stuff, they wonder, was there something that happened? Was there a coup? You know, and people, you know, like we don't know because we don't know. Yeah, we know certain times when it's very obvious. And the thing in Syria was right out in public. One general got deposed and another general got deposed.
Watch Mission Impossible happen.
And Mission Impossible happens. All you need is a mask.
Yeah.
All you need is a really good mask and you can create a coup. No, this does happen. It's an indication of of unstable societies. And again, it's a cautionary tale for us that if you create situations like that where people don't really want the system to stay, it won't stay. So this all happens during King Asa's life. So Zimri's now king. So let's
Wait, hold on. Referring back to it's not history. I don't remember, are the kings that are identified as bad because they don't worship properly or treat God properly, or is
well, here's
there
the problem, Judith.
stories of them
Every
treating
king of the
people
north is bad. Every king in the north is bad. The kings of the south will be deemed bad for essentially idolatry and for doing the wrong thing. But we'll get to that. We're not there yet. But in the north, we see it every time. Every single one of these kings is bad. Exactly. So the people of the
But it
south
doesn't
are going to
say-
every one of these kings is bad. Their
Right, so
their
the South are
problem-
saying
their
that,
problem is how
they're
does
saying it because of
Jeroboam
God,
become
right?
king? And King Jeroboam becoming king was this slippery thing where, well, King Rehoboam was so bad that they had to almost do that. And again, they justified it that Solomon was bad too, to some extent, because Solomon led people astray. So it always is going to come back to God. It's always going to come back to how people are worshiping. That's what they're going to lay it at. But again, I mean, if we read it as history, then there's political instability and there's a system that enables this. Now, by the way, the political system is not free from the priest, right? The priests are not independent of that. The priests are very much part of the stability and the problem. So if the priests don't like people, they may not be able to take them out in Judah, right? The kingdom of Judah, based in Jerusalem, the priests, that's their headquarters. They had power. We'll see it. We're not going to see it yet. So they couldn't take out kings that necessarily they didn't like, but they're part of the situation. So they don't just write about it. I want to make that point. We're going to see that they're very active at a certain point in the system. So they're part of this. They're not just reporting it. They're part of the deciding part of this. But not in the north. They have no control over what's happening in the north. They report it. They say it's all because these people are bad. So all this is happening during King Asa's time so far. So here's what Zimri does.
No sooner had he become king and ascended the throne than he struck down all the house of Baasha. He did not leave a single male of his, nor any kinsman or friend. Thus Zimri destroyed all the house of Baasha in accordance with the word that the Lord had spoken through the prophet Jehu.
Wow. Same thing, a purge. And as Judith said, this is very Game of Thrones. It is, and it's actually the worst parts of the Game of Thrones where people decide we have to kill everybody in this house because we can't leave anybody alive who could harm us later on.
You lose, you die.
Yeah. And that's what happens, unfortunately, when you get caught up in this stuff. Because look, that's all we just read. He didn't leave a single male of his alive, a house of Baasha. There's some cousin, there's some nephew that just got murdered, or we read about it. He didn't do anything. He just happened to be part of the wrong family. I mean, that's just, we just read that matter of factly, that he just went out and murdered all the people in this guy's family. It's horrific. So again, it was foretold.
Because of the sinful acts which Baasha and his son Elah committed, and which they caused Israel to commit, vexing the Lord, the God of Israel, with their false gods.
Yep. So again, false gods, the word havalehem, which means they're vanities, they're false gods. Not a bad translation, but it's probably simply the statues of the golden calves. It doesn't have to be, it actually doesn't say, I do want to just say right here, it actually doesn't say Elohim. It doesn't say gods. It says Havalim, Havlehem. They're vanities. Their Havel is translated as vanity in different translations, but like vanity of vanities from Ecclesiastes. Havel, Havelim. Havel is also the root for the name Abel in the Bible, right? He's not vain. Vain is the wrong word for it. It's really their air, if you will, their nothingness. Havel, vanity sounds like you're talking about being vain or jealous. It's not. It's actually, like if I say the word vanity, do you think of a mirror in your bathroom? But it's really, we think of vanity as being, like being very vain, being very full of yourself. It actually is not really what this means. It means, that's why they translate it as false gods.
Sarah says a better translation is vapor. All is vapor.
Vapor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Vapor. Nothingness. So it's not saying, look, they're basically saying those things that you worship are nothing. But that's far different than saying you're worshiping, false gods. You're worshiping BS. It's fake gods. No, it's nothing. But vapor is a much better word. And that's a better translation for Abel, for his name. He was vapor because he wasn't here for very long. He was gone. Vapor, vanity of vanities, everything that we think is important, it's all vapor. It's all air. So that's what this is because of their, that's what it's, false gods is fine. It's just, it's not really, it doesn't even say gods. It's for their air that they worship or whatever their vanities. Anyways, so here's what it says about Ella. It doesn't really say anything, but
The
Yeah.
other events of
well,
Ella's
one second,
reign.
Rosemary.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
That I'm reading is the New Revised Standard, and it poses it as a question. Now the rest of the acts of Elah
Uh-huh.
and all that he did, are they not written in the Book of Chronicles?
Yeah.
And that happens about 3 times.
Yeah. So rather than just saying it, I mean, they're saying it rhetorically. They are saying it rhetorically. They're saying, aren't they there?
I understand, but I don't understand this translation is different than that.
Yeah. I thought you were talking about the van. While you have it though, how does it translate the word at the end of 13? How does it translate? What does it say for false gods?
To anger with their idols.
Okay. So they just say, yeah, Mary, what does yours say? Idols, vanities. That's a better translation.
Vanities is better.
Because it captures what the word havel means. Anyways, but yeah, so Reverend Lynn's other point here is that the way that the English, how does the King James translate 14? The other events,
Are they not written in the Book of Chronicles?
with a question mark.
Yeah.
So the New Revised Standard, the NRSV translated also as a question. So the Hebrew translation or the translation, I will say this, in this case, I'm not sure that the King James and the Revised Standard version have to pose it as a rhetorical question. But it is a rhetorical question.
Referring you back. to
It is, but it's saying, are they not? Are they not written in the, so if we read it as a question, then it's like, that's a question. But it's a really rhetorical question. Are they not there? Go look there. Which is, I guess the way they translate the word v'yeter divrei. Like, so, I don't know that it has to be translated as a rhetorical question. That's why, I mean, I wouldn't say,
It's not that it is.
yeah, let me just see what the new JPS translates it as. They translate it as, because they're usually pretty literal. I don't know that, well, yeah, because every time it says it, because it's going to say it over and over and over again, it's going to say, is it not written? So it's going to, no. Here it just says the other events of Ella's reign and all his actions are recorded in the annals. So it doesn't translate it. It's, I don't know that it's necessary to translate it as a rhetorical question. And the guys who wrote this are pretty literal. They're not poetic. They're much more literal. Yeah, yeah, that's the phrase that they use. But it is also this statement of, if you want to read more about it, go read about it, which is puzzling because we can't, it's frustrating. At one time you could, but it is also telling people to some extent, we don't care. I mean, it's essentially, by the way, that's not what we're here to tell you.
Right, it's not.
It's not important to us. Now, it's frustrating because it's important to us, but we'd like to know. We'd like to know. But by the way, they're also saying, look, it's not important to us. It's important to you maybe, but it's not important to us. It's not important for the story that we're telling you. In the scheme of things, we've edited that out. We could have told it to you.
So is that one like me? You could read it. Someone-
Yeah.
No.
When they wrote that, you could read it somewhere. So it's no issue telling people. If you say, hey, look, if you want to know more about that story, I have a bunch of photos that I can show you. Well, when I'm gone and my photos are gone, I can't show it to you. So I have these great photos I can show you. Well, 2,000 years later, I don't know where those photos are. I don't get to see them. Yeah, but now they will. Now they're online. So here's what it says, and that's going back to, now we're going to hear what happens with Zimri.
During the 27th year of King Asa of Judah, Zimri reigned in Tirzah for 7 days. At the time, the troops were encamped at Gibeton of the Philistines. When the troops who were encamped there learned that Zimri had committed treason and had struck down the king, that very day in the camp, all Israel acclaimed the army commander Omri king over Israel. Omri and all Israel then withdrew from Gibeton and laid siege to Tirzah.
Yeah, now this one does seem like more of a popular revolt. I will say that it's still led by the troops. It's led by the military. It's led by the military. Because
It didn't rain really at all.
no, Zimri reigned for 7 days. Now, whatever happened with him, he was a military. It says he was in the military, right? It says Zimri was his chief of, what was his actual title? He was the chief of the commander of of half the territory. So he was a chariot commander, he was a tank commander. So he's important. He's an important job, but he is a general who thinks he can take power. Well, clearly the rest of the military didn't like him. And so I don't know what.
Popular vote, the baker's not gonna kill him.
No, but what these guys did was, in the 7 days that he was king, they chose another guy who was also in the military. Omri was also an army commander. So they chose a different guy in the military. So the military didn't like Zimri, but they liked Omri. So Zimri did it. He did the job. Now, there's an interesting question here, which we'll never know the answer because we don't have the text. And even if there was a text, we don't know if it's in it. Sometimes there is a guy who becomes the fall guy in the coup. And Zimri very easily could have been used by Omri and the rest of the people who were part of this coup to go, hey, I ain't going to kill the guy. You kill the guy. We'll support you. And they were like, we're not going to support, hey, by the way, we're not supporting him. So it's very easily that Zimri, the bad guy in this, killed the king, Ella, and got the blood on his hands. And Omri goes, hey, now you can get rid of this guy. And he's the fall guy. And that does happen. So we don't know for sure. 7 days is a pretty good indicator that it's a possibility.
They didn't know that what Zimri did.
Yeah, it does, right? It does seem like they did treason.
Right.
But we already knew that we knew that Baasha had committed. So, but when Baasha became king, I mean, he committed treason. So it seems like you can commit treason if you have popular support, or if you have some support, or if you're not the stupid fall guy. It could be, again, that Zimri, we don't know. I said we don't know for a fact, but it is possible because that stuff does happen. So Zimri could have just been the guy who goes, oh yeah, I'll kill him. Sure, let's get rid of him. And then everybody steps back after 7 days and goes, oh my God, can you believe what Zimri did? And then they go and they kill him. Well, here's how they killed him.
Omri and all Israel then withdrew from Gibeton and laid siege to Tirzah. When
Which is
Zimri
the
saw,
capital that Baasha made. He made it the capital. So
when Zimri saw that the town was taken, he went into the citadel of the royal palace and burned down the royal palace over himself, and so he died. Because of the sins which he committed and caused Israel to commit, doing what was displeasing to the Lord and following the ways of Jeroboam.
now, in all fairness, he had 7 days. He didn't do a whole lot in 7 days, but he burned down the palace over, and he, of course, as he continued.
Are we frozen or is that just me?
It all went quiet for a minute.
Still quiet.
Yep.
Oh, I'm tired of this business, Rosemary.
Well, it's only 86 in Santa Paula, so I'm glad I'm here, but I miss you guys.
Well, we're moving. I heard you said that. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, I did hear that. You're moving what, to the coast?
Yeah, Oxnard, Channel Islands.
Yeah.
I can't stand this anymore.
Yeah. Don't blame you. I guess I could read that. Then the people of Israel split into two factions. A part of Okay. Then the people of Israel split into two factions. A part of the people followed Tibni, son of Ginat, to make him king, and the other part followed Omri. Those who followed Omri proved stronger than those who followed Tibni, son of Ginat. Tibni died, and Omri became king.
thought that might happen.
Can you hear us? You can hear us.
Can hear you.
There's a movie called Family Squares. Anybody seen that?
No,
No.
Oh, well, it's pretty good. It's about this family that's trying to their grandma is dying and they're trying to arrange her last days and her funeral over Zoom during the pandemic. And it's sort of a dark
Oh, my.
comedy, but it's really good.
I did.
Where did you see it?
It's you can get it from Amazon.
Okay. Okay, I'll look for it.
Rosemary, can you hear?
I can hear you faintly.
I know, but I just took off. I put it on the computer. Can you, Rosemary, can you hear me?
Yes,
Rosemary, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me there.
We can hear you,
Okay,
Gordon
and
and
now-
I.
All right, so we are going to. But how is it coming through?
It's weird.
And it just did it without any,
Facebook, but not the.
No, it's coming through Zoom too.
yeah. Yeah, it's coming through, it's just not coming through the speaker here.
But they're also frozen still up there.
It'd be nice.
Now, is that coming from his Apple computer or your?
They can just do their own little circle and we'll do ours. Just kidding.
No,
I'm just-
we might have to wrap up right now, which is actually a good place to break, but I did want to read the I did want to read,
It's that computer. I think it's coming.
it's weird. I think it's that, yeah, I think it's that.
computer.
Oh, can you see if it's shut off?
I can do that.
Thanks. Let's see if it's shut off, because I think it's our computer here that might have wigged out.
shut itself off.
All right. We're gonna try one thing, Rosemary, before we finish up. We're gonna restart. We think it's the computer, not the computer that I'm scrolling through, but the computer that we're actually watching. So if I put up this computer, 1 second, if I put up my computer, the computer that we are looking at, it's fine. It's fine. Right? I can put up and share for my screen, but we can't see it and we can't hear you. So hold it 1 second. It would? All right, so we're gonna we're gonna finish off here. I put it back up. Because, yeah, you guys can't see, well, yeah, you can see it. You can see the screen. You can see what I'm sharing, but we can't. And we can't control it here. So I will tell you folks, where we're leaving off is with King Omri. And the fact that what we're gonna see here is that the people of Israel split into two factions. One that followed Tibni, son of Ginat, made him king, and the other one that followed Omri. Those who followed Omri proved stronger than those who followed Tibni, the son of Ginat. Tibni died and Omri became king. So for a short period of time, there were actually two kings of Israel, and that's where we're going to take up next week. The house of Omri is actually a substantial and important kingdom. And it is the most powerful kingdom we ever see in the northern kingdom. The kingdom of Omri is very important because King Omri, and I can't show it here, but King Omri becomes king eventually by himself. He becomes the king in charge, and his son is King Ahab, King Ahav, who we'll read about next week. King Ahab is the king who is the most powerful and most substantial king in the north. And we read about him because we read about his fighting with Elijah fighting with him. We're going to read about next week. And we read about him because he had a wonderful, wicked wife named Jezebel, who becomes Jezebel. That's right. Everybody goes, ooh, because Jezebel becomes a word. She's so bad that she becomes famous, just so famous that you can just use that word. You can be a Jezebel. There's not many people who become so big that their name becomes a word. If you become a so-and-so, if one day you became a Marsha, can you imagine? A Karen, that's right. There isn't even really a real Karen anymore. There's just Karen. But yes, that's true. If you're a Karen, so sad. So yeah, Karen, I know everybody named Karen got stuck with that. Anyways, folks, thank you. And thank you, Rosemary, for reading again. And thank you, everybody,
you.
for putting up with this little technical problem we had today. We'll see you next week. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.